I think we should go ahead and get started so we can conclude on time. So welcome everyone. I am really excited about, can everyone hear me? Give me a thumb up if you can hear me. Oh, very good. All right, I'm trying something new. I'm away from, several meters away from my home. So I wanna make sure I'm still connected to the internet. But I'm very excited about today's session because I like to talk about how we can thrive post-pandemic. So thriving post-pandemic is the topic for today. And before we talk about how we can thrive, I'd like to share my thoughts on some of the sectors I believe that are going to do really well immediately after the pandemic and maybe a few years after that as well. And after we've gone through some of those sectors, maybe you have some of your own ideas. You are more than welcome to share them as well. And then we'll talk about how we can succeed post-pandemic. So the first sector that occurs to me that is going to do really well, and we have evidence of that now, is the remote work sector. So if you can figure out a way to gain skills on how to develop platforms that would enable remote work now, you're going to be in good shape, I think. I strongly believe that. We have seen the rise of technologies such as DocuSign. So DocuSign is a software that allows you to basically append your signature and conduct business remotely. And in fact, their stock price has gone up since the pandemic. Obviously, Zoom is also doing really well, and other platforms such as Zoom that enable people to have meetings like this. So gaining skill sets that allow you to be able to perform work remotely is going to go a long way. So if you can develop those platforms yourself, or if you can acquire those skill sets, you're going to be in good shape from my perspective. So that's number one, developing those skill sets that will enable us work remotely. Number two, a sector will be remote or distance education sector. You know, 10, 20 years ago, if you tell someone that you are going to school online, they will look down on you. It's almost like online learning is reserved for those who could not attend proper education or proper school. But that has changed. The pandemic, if anything that we've learned is that, in fact, online learning is the way to go. It's allow us to be able to learn independently. We can go and contribute in the online course space on our own time. It's flexible, and actually can have robust discussions in online platforms. So if you can learn how to learn online, if you could develop platforms that will allow you to let others learn online, I think you're going to do well post-pandemic. So remote and distance education learning, that sector I think is going to do well after the pandemic. The other sector, the third one, in my opinion, is the healthcare sector. Obviously, you all know that the heroes of our day today are men and women in the healthcare field. They are on the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. But we are also learning that it's important to keep our immune system up. It's important to stay healthy and to take different approaches to staying healthy, including eating healthy, exercising, and so on and so forth. But people who are healthcare practitioners, I think are going to continue to do well. And I believe that we've seen their value now that we've faced this pandemic. So the healthcare sector, I believe, will do well. In fact, I just got a link to a news that talks about a Nigerian who is trying to develop, or who's leading the initiative for setting up a vaccine manufacturing plant in Nigeria. And so we're already beginning to see some of that happening. And we are seeing the rise of innovative medical organizations spring up in Africa and throughout the world as a result of this pandemic. The fourth sector that is going to do well post-pandemic is the supply chain management and flexible manufacturing sector. You know, in the business schools, we used to teach what is called just-in-time supply chain. In other words, there is no need to stock up your shelves or your warehouse because if you do that, you're essentially tying capital down, right, by stocking up so much. So the idea of just-in-time has really taken hold in the supply chain management intellectual space and has been espoused greatly. But what we've learned from this pandemic is that just-in-time doesn't work, because if you are doing just-in-time and you hit an emergency, such as this pandemic or anything that sort of throws you off, or if there is a minor disruption in your supply chain, then you won't be able to meet the demand. So in the US, we saw toilet papers, for example, and hand sanitizers disappear from shelves, from stores in a matter of days or even hours, right, after the pandemic hit. So business leaders are going to start thinking about ways to adopt flexible manufacturing such that their manufacturing systems could be retooled should they need to manufacture something else, or it could be ramped up or ramped down as the demand fluctuates. So that's the kind of thinking that we are going to have to take with us as we move post-pandemic and entering a new era after COVID-19. So just to recap the four sectors that I think that are going to do well. The first sector I mentioned is remote work sector. Again, if you could develop those platforms or if you could learn those skill sets that will help you thrive in remote work space, you will do well. The second is remote and distance education sector, and which is what we are doing at Osiri University, and we are recruiting talented teachers from all over the world to teach at the university. The third space is the healthcare sector. That doesn't need much explanation. And the fourth one is supply chain management and flexible manufacturing. And this is an area I believe we need to pay attention in all these areas in Africa, right? But I think in Africa, we need to pay particular attention to the area of flexible manufacturing because we haven't been doing a lot of manufacturing in Africa. I think it's time for business leaders and investors to start thinking about setting up plants in Africa and making sure those plants are smart and that they also allow for flexible manufacturing. So those are the four sectors that I would like to share. And then let me then share some ideas on how I think we can thrive. And the idea is very simple, really. And this idea is called collaboration, right? It's the idea of collaboration. I think if we reflect on an African proverb that pertains to collaboration and working together, we can get the understanding that collaboration is important. And that proverb says that if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think we have lost this sense of working together in Africa. The African people around the world, they have lost this culture. It's a beautiful philosophy that that says we should always seek to work together, always seek to do that. And there are various levels to do that. I mean, the first level of working together is to start a joint venture, right? So you could start a partnership with someone or some entity, and and that will take you a long way, because now you have two minds or you have two groups working together and shaping an idea. And when somebody's weak, the other person is strong to lift the other person up and to keep the idea moving. So so uh, 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 partnership or starting joint ventures is important. I really challenge you to to take this to heart and find and not to go alone on any venture. Try to find partnerships to launch joint ventures. And if you cannot do that, let's say you've already started, or for some reason you couldn't find a partner, you could do what we call strategic alliance. You could ally with someone. So you could still have your own entity, but you have a strategic alliance, and that is not just a matter of uh, making a phone call and saying, "Oh, I want to be an ally of yours." It has to be strategic. You have to discuss how you are going to contribute to each other's success and how you cannot do without each other. And you have to have a set schedule. You have to be able to have regular meetings where you discuss the goals of the alliances. I see so many mushroom type businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that, in having small businesses. But again, we can go really far and we can do much more if we coalesce our efforts and work together. So if you have your own entity, if you're doing your own thing, fine. But try to form a strategic alliance with someone else or some other people. I think that will take you a long way. The other level is to at least have what I call a council of elders or an advisory board. Okay, if for some reason you can't form a partnership and you don't have an alliance, you could certainly have a group of people who are advising you, okay? And they have a stake in what you are doing, and they're advising to make sure that you succeed. I think that will bode really well for you during the pandemic and post-pandemic. And of course, you can do all three too. I love to do all three. I love the idea of partnering with other people, and the partnership can still have other strategic alliances. And then we can also still have an advisory board. Why not? So I will go for all three, and that will really take you very, very far. Okay, so let me stop right there because I intend to really keep this brief.
I'm Chika Wanko, Nigerian, calling in from speaking from South Korea. Just two things I want to contribute since we've been having this meeting. For me, I want to bring in the area of volunteerism. Since we started this, I'm sure there are a lot of expectations from people, but I just want to chip in that if we are going to make the impact that we believe we should make in the African soil, we should also think about taking the lead, taking the bull by the horn, volunteering, because we have to make sacrifices. So if the crop of people we have here are people that are willing to make that change, to bring that change, because I've been in South Korea for some time and I've looked at their development model. I've seen that they did a lot of sacrifice for them to get where they are today. So for us to achieve that, we have to think about how to make sacrifice to volunteer. Then my second contribution is in the area of supply chain. And for me, no matter what we do, no matter how remote the technology is or remote our working condition is going to be, at the end of the day, there are things that still need to travel. There are things that still need to move, materials, some human beings,
Mr.
even,
Wankwo,
sir,
please speak up a little bit. I just got a message
a
in the
message
chat room to raise your
to
voice. Please raise your
raise my
voice a
voice.
little bit more.
Okay, okay. So what I'm saying in essence is this: we have to take the supply chain sector very seriously because it's a can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So because it's also, you know, when they talk about those in the front line, we always talk about the medical personnel. Those in the logistics, transport, supply chain, we also have to take them into consideration so that it
Yes.
will be a holistic approach to solving issues like this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that amazing contribution. I agree. I do agree with you. The folks um, in the medical field are the heroes. They are the visible heroes that we know because they are on the front lines. But you are absolutely right. Those in the supply chain industry are our invisible heroes. In fact, without them, even those on the front line won't be able to do their work appropriately. So thank you for that reminder. And to your point about volunteerism, I agree. I agree with you. It's important that we approach whatever we are doing with the mindset that we have a duty to perform. We have a duty to perform for our people. You know, I'm reminded by the words of the great Madiba, Nelson Mandela. You know, when as he was fighting apartheid in South Africa, he was arrested and jailed. Of course, you all know this, and he was taken to court at one point, and and he was asked to say his piece before sentencing, and he basically said that he felt that he had a duty for his people, and he has fought against all kinds of domination, right? But he was willing. I mean, and in fact, he went on to say that he hoped to see a free society in South Africa. He hopes to live and to see it. But he added that even if he doesn't get to see it, that he is willing to lay down his life for that ideal. Obviously, great men and women like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, they have paid the price for us to be here. So none of us here have to lay down our lives, right? We don't have to lay down our lives for anything per se. So what we just need to do is to pick up from where they left and continue to uplift our people. And the university, those three universities, one small way that we can do that. And we are essentially saying that our university system in Africa and around the world is broken. You know, African people are not learning about their culture, about their history, and we are not learning relevant content that we can use to change our situation. That's all we are saying. And we are setting up this university to address that gap. It's that simple. You may have seen on Google yesterday of some African instruments, beautiful African instruments. If you on the Google page, there is a link you could have clicked on, and it would take you to beautiful African instruments that many of us don't even know about. So, but I can't even mention some of these names because they are not from my area, but they are beautiful instruments, you know. And so we should have universities with schools of music teaching these types of African instruments. You see? So we should be teaching those things: African music, African history, African culture. And then when we learn engineering, we should be learning it to apply it to ourselves. So if you take a look at Nigeria, for example, it's appalling to be that a country as big as Nigeria um, doesn't have the technology to mine crude, to explore, right? And mine crude oil and process it. We don't have it, but we have oil. So we should, our engineering education should be focused on how to transform our minerals. Ghana should have the best gold miners and people who process gold. It's that simple. Our engineering schools should be about developing technologies and skill sets that will allow us to be able to take advantage of the minerals that we have.
Our African continent is a big and blessed continent. And I could remember the words of Chinua Achebe. He said that if you don't know where the rain started beating you, you won't know where it stopped beating you. I really believe that there should be, we all should come together as Africans, no matter your country, no matter your culture, because we have diverse culture, we have diverse tribe in Africa. But these things is not something a country can do it alone. I could remember Nigeria is being known as giant of Africa, but the work shouldn't be left for Nigeria alone to raise Africa. Countries like Uganda, countries like Cameroon, countries like Congo, and other African countries, we should all collaborate, we should all partner to make Africa great again. So I believe in the dreams of partnership and in the dreams of collaboration, just like you've mentioned. And from your quote, you said that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. I believe this should be a unanimous agreement by every one of us. And I can remember that a bucket of paint does not change the color of a sea. It takes more than a bucket of paint to change the color of a sea. And a single bracelet does not jingle. So this is something we all, no matter your country, no matter the language you speak in Africa, yes, there is no one language that unites Africans, but there is this one culture we are known for as Africans, as Blacks. So together we can really do this. So this is encouragement I want to give. Thank you.
I wanted to kind of address the collaboration aspect of the discussion that you just covered. I think just to add on the previous conversation, from the business standpoint, I think it it would be really beneficial to kind of facilitate some form of relationship so that we're able to match individuals that have the potential to collaborate, even if they're in the beginning stage of ventures or are planning on developing ventures in the near future. I think just creating a platform to where we are able to kind of talk and develop various ideas, I think that would be really critical as well in terms of collaboration and partnership within the business space.
That's fun. That's a great idea. Okay, I think we should work on that. We should work on creating that platform to foster collaborations. Brilliant.
Among the people that are here right now, just following up on some of the collaboration areas you suggested, you said remote distance education, supply chain, flexible manufacturing. Are there people right now on this platform? I know there's Osiri University, which also I'm very much part of as well. Are there people right now on this platform that are involved in one of these things and would like to have people collaborate with them? Right now you have people with the same mindset now. So probably if you have that in mind, this might be a good opportunity for you to say it out now or type it out in the chat and see who might be interested in what you're doing right now. So that's kind of yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You have to almost abandon any traditional thinking. So it's not a semester-based or a quarter-based system. All the courses are independent. We have courses that are 4 weeks. We have some are 5, 6, 7, depending on the content. And it's going to be on a rolling basis. So an instructor can offer one course several times in a week. I mean, in a year. Okay. So that is the model. It is a different model, and we want to continue to empower the instructors so that they can be the best at what they are doing, because we believe that the change will happen through our instructors, because they are the ones having contact with the students. So that is the model that we are using.
I would like to congratulate you and hopefully to see will impact the Africa and the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's my good friend Obube from Togo. I'm very happy that you are here with us. Appreciate you. Everything we are doing It has to be African style. Okay, all the good things about the African ways, that is what we want to incorporate. And that is why I actually don't like to do seminars, because seminars is one way. I'm the one talking. You see, I don't like to also lecture because it's one way. I'm the one talking. I love interactions from people. And guess what? It's African. That is the African way. See, when you see the elders sit around in a circle, everyone takes their turn to talk. Or when there are meetings in the village or in town halls, everyone get to speak up. That is the African way. And that is why it's important for me to just say a little to set the stage for the conversation and have you all chime in. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that you are going to take forever, but you all are doing great. You get to say your piece, 2-3 minutes, so that somebody else get to also chime in. That, to me, is the African way. And I believe if we keep doing that, we can create better and stronger societies. In fact, down the line, I'm going to talk about this some more because it's a culture that we have forgotten. Our leaders today don't even want to hear any criticism. They don't want to hear it. They just want to be praised all the time. That is not African at all. That is not African. Because if you think about the Congolese tradition, in the Congolese tradition, they talk about what a leader should be like. And they describe a leader as one with an ear, a holder of ear. A leader is a holder of ear. The leader listens, right? In the Igbo tradition, do you know what it means to listen? Think about it. If you're an Igbo person here, if you're Igbo, to listen means to hang your ear. Ge nte or gebe nte. Gebe nte means to hang. You're going to hang your ear there and you shut up and listen. You hang it there. That is the Igbo way. That is the African way. To listen. We have forgotten about listening. So those are the kind of things that we need to bring in. And as you teach, it's important you make sure your students are participating. You draw out their own thoughts, bring their mindset, make them feel confident, make them feel part of the co-creation of the knowledge that you are trying to bring into the course space. Let it be part of it. Okay, so I want to pause there. I think we're going to dedicate some time to talk about qualities of a leader, what it really means to be a leader, because we have strayed. We have strayed completely. We need to go back to what it means to be a leader. And Africans had the philosophy of what it means to be a good leader. And in fact, if the world can take a look at that, I think we're going to build and create better societies.
I've realized that most of us, the Africans, we do have a very rich culture of which we can borrow idea in and really move forward. But again, we have to admit in our culture, we do have even bad things like what you just described. So I would think that if we want to move forward, we really want to also think and borrow some ideas from the Western culture. I don't believe that everything they do or whatever they do, what they do is bad, but we need to be very creative and try to borrow some of the ideas they have into our own cultures and try to eliminate as much as possible the bad we have and make sure that we move the African culture or continent in a positive way. So that was my contribution, as I see most of the things like we're talking about Africa, but we don't need to really eliminate everything from the Western, because I do believe they have some positive contributions in their way, but we need to borrow that into our own way of thinking and moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just to be clear, just because we are espousing Africa doesn't mean that we don't believe, in learning from other people. So I have said this a million times, in previous meetings. I'm a product of a Western education and of an African education, right? I got my bachelor's and my PhD in the US, right? I've traveled all over the world. So we can learn from everyone. And that is what a smart person will do. And it's also African to learn from other people, because the idea of listening means you have to listen to everyone, right? You listen to everyone. It's not just about what you have to say. So yes, your point is well taken. We should do that. In fact, the first step to creating a syllabus or a course at our university is you have to find other syllabi. That's the first step. Find other syllabi, find other courses to see the topics that they are covering, and then add what is missing. And typically what's missing is going to be some of the African pieces. You see what I'm saying? So we are starting there anyway. So, but your point is well taken. We should never feel like we don't have anything to learn from other people. We do. We sure do. Thank you, Ben, for saying that.